Hello, and welcome to the Meditation Center's monthly metaphysical lesson. Humanity seems to have an innate need to understand where we come from and why we're here. We see our life and our history as having a distinct beginning, followed by a concise timeline that we have followed on our journey to where we are now. We explore our genealogy to understand where our ancestors lived and what kind of work they did. We find it fascinating when we discover that we're related to someone notable. Without knowing the path that got us here, we can feel lost, like wanderers. We also understand the need for order in our lives. If we were all allowed to do anything we wanted to do, there would be disorder and chaos. We tend to work better when everyone is on the same page, and we as a society create rules to determine what page to be on, so to speak. The Old Testament was written to serve these purposes, to explain the origins of the Jewish people, and guidelines for society of the time to follow to ensure good, orderly progression. Contrary to some beliefs, these documents were written by man for the use of man, using a personified God to serve as an authority figure, so that people would be less likely to contradict them. And it worked. It got most everyone on the same page. Today's discussion focuses on one of the most quoted sections of the Old Testament, Exodus chapter 20, verses 2 through 17, and Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 6 through 21, which we commonly know as the Ten Commandments. They really aren't enumerated or titled that way in the Bible, but they serve as 10 simple rules of moral living that have helped further the human race's desire for harmony, peace, and respect. Today, we're going to explore these 10 ideas and what they mean, not just literally, but also metaphysically. The first commandment is, "You shall have no other gods before me." Traditionally, this commandment is interpreted as an expectation that there is one God that we should all follow and respect. If we treat someone or something else on an equal standing, or exceeding our idea of what God is, then we believe in more than one God. Of course, some folks tend to place a personified Satan on an equal standing with God, but that's another discussion for another day. Metaphysically, we believe that God represents all there is, and no one concept can adequately represent the extent and power of that infinite intelligence. God is all that is, so there can be nothing else. How often do we see people who are so focused on being successful at their jobs that they hardly ever see their families? How often do we see overachieving students punishing themselves because they got a B in a class? Those kinds of things become gods in a way. When we hold on to specific people, things, assumptions, or ideas, we begin to exclude other possibilities, thereby limiting or overriding the infinite possibilities that exist in the realm of the universe. There is no one path to truth. Truth is not what we deem it to be. Truth is, whether we are aware of it or not, whether we recognize it or not, whether we believe it or not. Conversely, when we focus on the all, we make room for all possibilities, all iterations, all alternatives that God truly is. The second commandment is, "You shall not make for yourself a graven image." This commandment is really a variation of the first one, just expressed in a different way. If we choose something specific to worship, in other words, to focus our admiration and adoration on, whether it is an idea, or a book, or a place, or a principle, we are limiting God, which has no limits. Material objects or people cannot supply what God can for our spiritual well-being. So many people equate the Bible with God, but the Bible is not God, only an example of an idea of God. As one of our teachers once said, you can't compress God into 66 books. Don't attach yourself to specific things, for they are just things. God is so much more. And in the grand scheme of our universe, things are insignificant. They only become significant to us because our human ego has decided that it is so. It's okay to appreciate the things we have, but they should not distract us from the endless, infinite beauty that we call God. The third commandment is, "You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain." We tend to associate this commandment with curse words, but taking the Lord's name in vain means something much different. Metaphysically, we understand that connecting our sense of God's self to negative emotions or things that do not represent truth will lead us away from our unfoldment. Focusing on the true God within us will lead us down a productive path. The word vain comes from the same root as the word vanity, meaning foolish pride and self-conceit. Taking the Lord's name in vain doesn't mean using bad words. It's invoking the energy of God to fulfill our selfish needs rather than on the greater good. When we're focusing on ourselves, we turn away from everything else, that which is also God. Instead of invoking God to help us achieve our own selfish desires and motives, we can invoke God to encourage harmony. The fourth commandment is, "Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy." In biblical tradition, the seventh day was a day of rest because God rested on the seventh day. Some traditions are so strict that virtually no physical activity or operating of machinery is permitted other than walking to and from worship services. But this commandment isn't about schedules. It's about taking time to be in the quiet stillness to renew us and help us recognize our connectedness with our higher self and with God consciousness. With few exceptions, most Christian traditions recognize the Sabbath as being on Sunday. The Bible designates the seventh day, or Saturday, as the Sabbath. The word for Saturday in Spanish is sábado, which means Sabbath. But the Sabbath isn't a particular day of the week. It isn't a particular day or time at all. It simply means taking time to stop and reflect. If you're working out in a gym, a Sabbath might be stopping and taking a few deep breaths before you continue your routine. In an average workday, the Sabbath is your lunch break. In a work week, the Sabbath is the weekend, a couple of days break from your work. In the course of your career, a Sabbath might mean an annual vacation and ultimately retirement. If you are busy focusing on the race, when are you taking time to enjoy the view? As they say, stop and smell the roses. That is what the Sabbath is all about. The fifth commandment is, "Honor your father and your mother." Yes, it's usually a good idea for children to honor their parents, for the parents usually have the wisdom and experience to understand things that a child cannot. But this commandment is more than just parents. In order to be complete, we must honor or respect both the masculine, intellectual, and feminine, intuitive aspects of our consciousness. It's honoring humanity, the ability for each of us to express in our own unique way, and the responsibility each of us has to make room for those expressions in others, even if they don't align with our own ideas or expectations. It's okay to cry when you're sad. It's okay to be strong when you have something that needs conquering. We all have masculine and feminine aspects of our personality, our bodies, and our lives. And someone else has theirs too. Honor them. The sixth commandment is, "You shall not kill." When we hear this commandment, we usually think in terms of murder. There are so many things we can kill without thinking about it, and sometimes it's necessary. We can't eat without killing something, because it's the life of those things that we eat that keep us alive. That is simply nature. We kill creatures that invade our home. How do we decide what's okay to kill and what is not? And what if it doesn't have anything to do with taking a living, breathing life at all? So often we kill without causing physical death at all. We can kill dreams. We can kill self-esteem. We can kill ambitions. We can kill a perfectly good day with our negative thoughts. We sometimes do it to ourselves, and we sometimes do it to others. This commandment is about respecting life, not just our own lives, but the lives of all living things, and the lives of the ideas we create and live by. As nature goes, most things die without our help, and they eventually do. But through our thoughts, our words, and our deeds, we can also do our part to foster the life of anything that inspires us and lifts us up, or that inspires and uplifts someone else. We need to be able to forgive those who trespass against us, rather than retaliating with hatred or harm. It is not our place to condemn others for their actions, as they must answer to themselves for what they do. The seventh commandment is, "You shall not commit adultery." Again, this is so much more than physical betrayal. Of course, we want to be respectful of the people we love the most, but we should also have respect for every human soul and ourselves. When we go back to the first commandment and focus on God and what is for the highest and greatest good of all, we have no choice but to have respect for everything that is, even the things we don't necessarily like. If we place ourselves in negativity, we are being disloyal and untrue or adulterous to our higher self. Be true to the highest good, and you will find harmony. The eighth commandment is, "You shall not steal." Infinite intelligence provides us with all we need, so there's no need to take away from others. When we do, we deny them of their right to prosperity. Like the other commandments we've discussed, this idea of stealing goes far beyond taking objects from someone else. Like "You shall not kill," there are many ways that we can steal. Stealing pride, stealing ideas, stealing peace. If it isn't yours, it isn't yours to take, whether it's a treasured object or an inspiring idea. We are far better off lifting up someone else's successes than trying to keep them for ourselves. The ninth commandment is, "You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor." On the surface, false witness has to do with lying. But there are so many ways that we can distort the truth without an outright lie. We can omit facts. We can describe a situation in a way that implies something different than what someone else might otherwise assume. We can do things that make another person look bad. We can impose our judgment without understanding the circumstances. The possibilities are endless, and they serve no spiritual purpose other than the lessons we learn from them. The law of cause and effect and the law of retribution ensure that no matter how we might manipulate a situation, sooner or later, it will catch up with us. The 10th and final commandment is, "You shall not covet." This last commandment is, in a way, a summation of all the others. When we focus on things that other people have, we're turning away from God. We're idolizing things that do not belong to us. We're exercising our vanity through our personal desires. We're making someone else's business our own. We're not honoring the person to which the coveted item belongs. We're killing someone else's ability to enjoy what they have manifested. We're being disloyal to our fellow humanity. We are stealing something that doesn't belong to us, even if it's just in our thoughts. And we're being less than true with our fellow human beings who may not even know that someone's eye is on what is theirs. Negative desire denies others of their right to achieve their highest good. Be kind. Appreciate someone else's success without diminishing it in any way, even if you have to do without. These 10 commandments are simple, straightforward lessons in morality, not just in a literal sense, but spiritually as well. So much of our sense of decency is sourced in these 10 simple don'ts. All of the commandments are about respect, respect for ourselves, each other, and our world. But you'll notice that the commandments are primarily about what not to do. Thou shalt not. It sounds like a parent fussing at their kids, doesn't it? Don't touch the stove or you'll burn yourself. Don't go outside without a coat or you'll catch a cold. Don't even think about eating dessert until you've eaten all of your vegetables. The rules don't tell us what to do, but what not to do. This is an important distinction, and I think there's a method to this madness. The rules make it easy to understand what we shouldn't do, but at the same time, they make space to honor our free will. We can do pretty much anything we want as long as we don't break the rules that we've agreed to. That's pretty much the definition of freedom, at least in this country. We're free to do whatever we want as long as we aren't harming someone else or imposing our will on other people's lives. And there are consequences if we do. In biblical times, the implication was that the consequences would come from the wrath of a supreme deity. We have evolved to understand that the consequences are a function of the law of cause and effect, which applies to earthly human laws as well as the laws of nature. And the more we understand how it works, the more harmonious our life is. Beyond the 10 Commandments of the Old Testament, the Bible has 2 more powerful rules that do tell us what to do. In the New Testament, Matthew chapter 22, verses 36 through 40, and several other passages, Jesus is asked what he thinks the greatest commandment is, and he shares powerful advice that tells us exactly what to do. First, he tells us to love and honor God with all of our heart and mind. We have so much we can gain by keeping our focus on our oneness with all that is, instead of immersing ourselves in earthly ideas. We can accomplish so much more by focusing on God, not just the idea of God as a supreme creative force, but the God that expresses through every person and thing in our universe. His second bit of advice is equally powerful. Love your neighbor as yourself. And this is powerful for a reason. We all benefit from focusing our every thought, our every word, our every action on things that not only serve our own highest good, but the highest good of all humanity. We must love our neighbor because our neighbor is us, and we are all a reflection of God expressing in and through every one of us. Honor it, obey it, and all will be well. And so it is. For additional lessons and meditation ideas, visit our website at www.meditatewnc.org. Thank you for joining us.